Anna Williams, a black woman with an unbreakable spirit, was humiliatingly arrested on her doorstep, and her husband Michael, the new police chief, had no idea his subordinates acted solely because of her skin color. When the truth emerged, their private struggle became a challenge to the entire system. Anna Williams, a tall, slender black woman, walked wearily along a well-lit street, carrying heavy bags of groceries. She looked confident and composed, her long dark hair neatly tied in a bun, her resolute dark brown eyes barely softened by the fatigue etched on her face. She wore a tailored worksuit under a light coat, warding off the evening chill, and practical low-heeled shoes that added to her formidable presence. When police cars pulled up and stopped, Anna felt a surge of unease. Her fingers tightened around the bag handles, her heart pounding harder. Officers Johnson and Miller exited the car, casting wary, resentful glances her way. Their faces seemed to convey a silent judgment. Johnson, tall and muscular with piercing gray eyes and a stern expression, stood beside the stockier Miller, whose hand rested on his belt, exuding an air of superiority and readiness. "ID," Johnson demanded without even looking her in the eyes, his tone leaving no room for refusal. Anna, unaccustomed to such treatment, felt anger rise within her, but kept her composure. Softly yet firmly, she replied that she was simply going home and saw no reason for such scrutiny. But the officers were not interested in her explanations. With a cold persistence and what felt like an intent to humiliate, they demanded that she empty her bags and reveal their contents. Her heart beat faster, filled with indignation and helplessness. With each word from the officers, she felt more and more trapped, as though enclosed by an unbreakable wall. She knew that resisting further might only worsen the situation. As passers-by whispered and looked away, the officers inspected her belongings, sifting through her groceries, seemingly looking for a reason to accuse her of something. Their glances, filled with distrust and hidden threat, conveyed that they saw her as guilty of something, regardless of what it might be. At that moment, Anna felt robbed and degraded, her self-worth shaken as though struck. Anna Williams was taken to the police station as if she were a criminal, feeling as if any remaining dignity had been stripped from her. Led down the halls, the bright lights emphasized her subdued state. Around her, officers cast perplexed and skeptical glances, silently judging her before any charges were even mentioned. She maintained a stern expression, but was inwardly consumed by bitterness and humiliation. The interrogation room was silent. Anna sat at a metal table with nothing but a glass of water in front of her. The officers across from her were expressionless, their faces cold masks of indifference. Each question dripped with suspicion. Every glance carried a veiled mockery. She tried to remain calm, answering each question succinctly and without emotion, but with each moment, the strain grew. The officers' words echoed hollowly. They had already decided who she was and were uninterested in the truth. Meanwhile, her husband, Michael Williams, was wrapping up preparations for his first day as the new county police chief. A confident, determined man with dark eyes, accustomed to facing pressure and injustice, he was eager for the chance to bring change to a department he suspected needed a fresh outlook. However, his plans were interrupted by an urgent message, a report of the arrest of a black woman, detained without evidence. As he read the brief account, horror struck him as he realized that this woman was his wife. Anger and worry surged within him, but Michael held back, knowing he needed to act with precision and composure. Rushing into the station, he strode down the long hall, his footsteps echoing like a heartbeat. Staff, recognizing him, froze, sensing the impending storm. Michael burst into the interrogation room, faced with a scene he would never forget. His wife, a symbol of strength and resilience to him, seated amidst an air of indifference and humiliation. The embarrassment on the officers' faces was evident as soon as they recognized Michael. They hadn't anticipated that their latest target of prejudice would turn out to be the chief's wife. Michael stood silently before them, his gaze smoldering with fury. He understood that his subordinates hadn't identified Anna, but their treatment of her, grounded in prejudice, was unmistakable. They hadn't seen her as a person or learned her story, only her skin color. For Michael, this was not only a personal heartbreak, but also undeniable proof of the deep-seated issue he had to confront. Controlling his simmering anger, Michael firmly and loudly ordered Anna's immediate release. His voice was steely, filled with resolve that left no room for debate. Officers Johnson and Miller, seeing his fierce glare, hesitated, exchanged nervous glances, and quickly moved to release Anna, realizing they had lost control of the situation. Anna rose with a proud, unbreakable stance despite her humiliation. She looked into her husband's eyes, feeling his support, and together they left the room, leaving the officers in a tense silence. However, Michael had no intention of letting the situation go unaddressed. He returned to Johnson and Miller, motioning toward two empty chairs outside his office. The officers, avoiding eye contact, slowly sat down, feeling the oppressive atmosphere around them. Michael stood before them, his face showing both disappointment and disdain. "Explain to me on what grounds you decided to detain an innocent woman," Michael began, his voice as firm and calm as a judge's. The officers remained silent, exchanging uncertain looks. Finally, Johnson stammered, "She seemed suspicious. We were just doing our job." Michael frowned, his eyes flashing with anger. "Suspicious?" he repeated with bitter irony. "Suspicious because she's a black woman carrying groceries? Do you understand that such suspicions are nothing but prejudice? Your job is to protect and serve all residents, not to judge them by their appearance." He paused, looking at both officers with piercing intensity. "Understand this. Your actions do more than break the law. They erode the trust that should exist between the police and the community. When you abuse your authority and show prejudice, you undermine the safety and respect for every police officer. Such attitudes sow fear and divide the community, making it more vulnerable." Johnson and Miller paled under his gaze, grasping the gravity of their actions. They realized that this encounter was not merely a reprimand, but a stern warning. Their careers and reputations could suffer due to one rash decision, rooted in personal bias. "I'm mandating that both of you complete mandatory anti-racial bias training," Michael added with an icy calmness. "And until you reflect on your views, rethink your actions, and come to understand that this behavior is no longer tolerable, you will not return to your duties fully." The story of Anna Williams's unjust detention became a local sensation. Evening news broadcasts displayed headlines, radio shows debated the incident, and local newspapers ran articles about it. On social media, opinions circulated widely. Some were outraged, some questioned the police's conduct, and others supported the need for reform. The issue highlighted not only Anna's mistreatment, but also a system that allowed such incidents. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Michael Williams decided to hold a press conference to publicly address the need to combat racial discrimination in policing. On the day of the conference, journalists, residents, and activists gathered outside the station. The atmosphere was tense, with many awaiting explanations and promises of change. Michael, in a formal dark suit, approached the microphones with a calm, assured demeanor. His face reflected seriousness and resolve, his eyes carrying determination and conviction. He began with a brief account of the incident, expressing his own frustration over what had happened to his wife. He then firmly declared his intention to fight racial bias within the police force. "Today's incident," he began, meeting the gaze of the crowd, "reveals that we as a system need to do more. Racial bias isn't only unethical, it's a threat to our community's safety. I promise to do everything in my power to prevent incidents like this from happening again. For this, I am initiating training and support programs for officers facing discrimination and committed to serving each resident, regardless of background or skin color." Michael's words were met with quiet approval from the crowd, which soon grew into enthusiastic applause. Many residents looked at him with respect, sensing his genuine concern and desire to improve the system. Meanwhile, Anna, gradually recovering from her experience, found strength to support her husband. Realizing the importance of sharing her story, she began actively participating in community events and meetings. Together, she and Michael organized gatherings with residents, discussing not only the incident, but also the deep-rooted issues underlying racial bias. They formed support and exchange groups, creating safe spaces where people could openly share their fears and experiences. These gatherings attracted people of all ages and races, each finding solidarity and understanding. Anna shared her story, listened to others, and emphasized that every voice mattered. Ultimately, this led to the formation of a small yet influential activist community committed to the fight for equality and justice.